show up in the group. All right, we are here with Ashley today. She is a family photographer and educator in Florida, and she's going to talk to us today about how to stand out in a saturated market. Um, Ashley, you've found a system that works for you, and now you get to teach other photographers how to kind of achieve their dreams. So I'm really excited to chat. Before we dive in, though, can you tell us about how you got into photography and where you are now in your business?
Yeah. So back in 2019, it was probably November of 2019. I remember, I'm a single mom. So it was at that point where it was just like my sales job, I was not bringing in the money. It just felt like I was not getting anywhere. And I've always had a camera. I've always loved taking pictures. But I think I always was scared to like hop in and actually call myself a photographer, which I feel like most of us start there.
Definitely.
Like, am I really going to say this? So it was just one of those things where it was a lot of, I had always had it, but I think like some point in November, I always say it was like a God thing, but I just like let all those fears go. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I started a Facebook page and everything. And I think I started like most photographers, like no idea how to do any of it except for take a picture. You know what I mean? Like, well, how much do I charge myself or charge like $75? Like, things like that. And so I learned a lot of trial and error, a lot of crying and everything. But it got to a point where once I was serious about it, once I got to a point where I realized all the things that I needed, and I needed to kind of like put in all the business stuff that I knew from my job and sales and everything. Once I applied all of that to my business and that same logic, I was actually able to go full time in just 6 months. So I was able to quit
Whoa.
my job and then I pivoted into education as well. So now I not only am a family photographer full time, but I'm also an educator. So I help other women make it a full time business as well.
That's amazing. What do you think, looking back at those like 6 months, what do you think helped you the most in getting from being part-time to full-time?
In all honesty, I think that I stopped doing what I thought was the way to start a new business. I think a lot of photographers get into starting this and they think like, well, I'm new, so XYZ, even if their work is absolutely stunning, they say like, well, I have to start in mom groups. I have to start with charging $100. I have to start with a website that doesn't convert and not figuring out like, how to get shown up and stuff because, all of that stuff is confusing, or I just want to post a picture. I don't want to have to worry about, marketing and everything like that. I think that as creatives, the business side of things scare us. And
Mhm.
so the biggest thing that I think that I did was I stopped letting it scare me. And I started learning and applying things and take it in a creative way. I think marketing is going more towards being creative. And a lot of people are not realizing that, and having that and showing it as a creative outlet. So I think that was probably like the biggest things that I did in like those 6 months is just realize that it is a business and to start acting like the CEO of my business.
Yeah, I love that because I think all of us can relate. When you start your photography business, it is overwhelming. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to have all this free time. I'm going to be my own boss. When in reality, being your own boss means you have to get stuff done and you
Yep.
have to take it seriously. So I think that really obviously sets you apart from some people where you were like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's not going to scare me. And clearly it worked for you if you went full time in 6 months. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I definitely have like three things that I feel like specific, and we can kind of get into those three things.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a lot of like the business stuff and just like really learning that and how it works with me and my life. Because again, I'm a single mom. I don't have 80 to 90 hours a week to work on my business and to
Right.
be constantly showing up. So I needed to find something that worked for me so that way I could be at home with my son as well.
Yeah. So before we get to those three things,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk a little bit about how you stood out or didn't stand out when you first started, because like we just said, like it's hard when you first start your photography business. It
Yep.
is really hard. Um, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea where you're like, I have these 3 ideas and they worked right away for me. What was it like when you first started? Like, were you getting clients right away? What were your struggles with standing out?
Well, if you remember, I started my business in 2019. Well, March of 2020, the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time to really try and figure out how I would get clients. I think that I can look at it in two ways, right? You could either be like, oh my gosh, what an unfortunate event. Like I was furloughed from my job and was trying to start a business and I can't because I can't take pictures. Or you look at it in the fact that I was so blessed, the fact that I was able to really sit down and think about how am I going to get these clients? How am I going to find people? So I live in Florida. Florida, if anyone's in Florida, you know that we had COVID for like 2 months and then the state kind of opened up, so I was able to take pictures and stuff starting in the summer. And I started out in the mom groups. And have you ever watched Finding Nemo, where all the seagulls are like mine, mine, mine with the Nemo? Okay, yeah, that's how I felt. Like it felt like that. Like I felt like someone was like, I need to have updated family pictures, and all the photographers like out of the
Mhm.
woods just came flocking in, and they were just like, me, pick me. And I was like, this is insane. Like, and I think that at that point, the way I was standing out is just because I was posting a picture with saying, like, hey, I'd love to work with you. Here's a picture of my stuff. And I think not a lot of photographers were doing that when I first started. Now you look in mom groups and that's all they do, like, pick me, here's my beautiful work, here's my website. And I think that another reason why I was getting clients again is because I was undercharging myself so much. And I was getting those clients, but I wasn't making the money. And that's a big difference of being busy and not being profitable. And I think that is something that really changed. And also I wasn't scared to show up on social media. I think that's something that I did differently than a lot of people. Like I wasn't afraid to hop on stories before reels and talking in stories was a thing, and just talking about my day and
Yeah.
talking about what I was doing and photography, and I was just sharing who I was. And I think that kind of helped me prepare for the next 6 months of how I was able to go full time in 6 months.
Yeah, I have to go back to the mom group comment because I have never heard a more accurate representation of what it is like in a mom group. If you're not in a mom group, you're not missing too much, so don't worry. But I mean, this is in any city. Someone will post, I'm looking for a photographer, especially if it's near like fall, Christmas, here in Texas, bluebonnet season. It is just, I mean, you can end up with 75 people
Oh my
responding.
gosh.
Pick me, pick me.
It's insane. It's insane. And I just felt like this has to be more than like, it has to be a better way. Like
Right.
I am spending, and it was like, it felt like at night, like I wasn't even really paying attention. Like I would be sitting down watching a movie with my son. I'd be like, oh, this
Yeah.
mom commented, I have to do this right away.
Yes.
And like, because I felt like if I wasn't the first 10 comments. And
Mhm.
so what was happening is I felt like I was begging for people to choose me. And I'm
Right.
like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, the answer is no, I don't want to do that.
Right. And on top of that, I feel like once people start posting, because I went through the same thing you did, where like I would post a photo and say like my website, Instagram, all of that. But then on top of that, once other people started doing that, I felt like I had to then say, here's why you should choose me. Like, let's chat. Like, I used to be a teacher. I'm
Please.
good for kids.
I swear I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard out there. So we want to avoid diving into mom groups and being, the mine, all of that. So let's get into the 3 things that you did. What are they? How can our photographers implement those into their business and start seeing some results instead of being in the mom groups or whatever group you might be in on Facebook trying to get clients?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and go into kind of like what I was saying before, like what kind of set me apart was I wasn't afraid to show up.
Yes.
And I have a sales background. So something that like what really stood out is how a lot of photographers were just talking about their brand, and they were talking about colors, fonts, and all the logos and everything. And I worked for a marketing company. I sold advertising and stuff. So I know the importance of a logo.
Mhm.
But then I started realizing, like, well, why were people buying from me? They weren't buying because they could go from anywhere, but why were they buying from me? And I started really thinking about that and understanding that branding is obviously a lot more than just the fonts and colors and logos, right? It is who you are, what you represent, and how you speak to people, what you bring to the table, and how can we showcase that to your potential clients. And so I literally wrote down everything that why I would want to pick me as a photographer. And it was stuff from I'm really good with kids, which I think most family photographers are, but then I saw that and I was like, well, most family photographers are good with kids. So what else? Like, what else that would not be the same thing? Same thing. I kept writing, I'm a mom. But most family photographers are moms, And so I wanted to figure out, yes, those were important. Those were my core things. But what else? Why else was I so good at working with people? Why would someone want to pick me apart from what my work looks like? Because in all honesty, anyone could get a preset, right? I sell my preset. Like anyone could have the same look as me. And so why would someone choose me if I'm charging a lot more than someone else who has the same style? And so that's what I really started doing. And it could be related to photography. It could just be who I am as a person. I put on there that I love guacamole, and I did a whole branding shoot with guacamole. Someone
That's
booked with
amazing.
me because I love guacamole. You know what I mean? Like, and so then when I did that, I created content buckets of like things that I am comfortable with showing about myself on social media. And I just talked about it, and I talked about why people would want to be with me. And that was the first thing that I did. And it worked so well. I think back in 2020, something that was really popular was like the your 5 favorite things as your story. And so I was doing that constantly of just like, get to know me better, and whenever I made a post, I did personal stuff. I made sure people saw my face. I showed my face often because in my opinion, I thought that like as a mom, I would never book with someone unless I knew what they looked like. I'm not meeting you in a random field if I
Right.
don't know what you look like. So I was showing my face on stories. I was showing my face on Instagram posts and stuff. I was posting headshots of me and just kind of like walking down of like who I am outside of photography. And a lot of people were able to connect with me. And marketing is going more towards that connection, especially with social, especially with social media. It's just going more towards the connecting points. Like they want to feel like they're our friends, you know what I mean? And that they know us. And that's just how it's going.
Yeah, and social media has made that so easy. I mean, I'm sure everyone can relate. I have friends on Instagram that I've never met in person, but I talk to on Instagram all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And showing your face as a photographer, people are buying into a session because of you, not necessarily the photos that might look similar to someone else who's charging less, but they want to book with you because they see your personality. They want to be your friend. They want to meet you in person. They want to have a good time with you during a session.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that that is the first thing you've talked about.
Yeah.
So important, and I think it gets overlooked a lot because I think some people they just don't want to show up on social media, which it can be hard. But I feel like once you start showing your face a little bit more, it gets easier and easier to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of my students actually made a comment about how it's easier for me to show up than it is for them. And I was like, listen, when I first started, like I hate the sound of my voice. I would like throw on all the filters on my face. You know what I mean? It was really difficult for me at first. I think that we judge ourselves so much. And especially once we become moms, I think sometimes it's hard for us to figure out what makes us special outside of motherhood. And so this is no joke. Finding out what makes you special, what makes you stand apart from everybody else outside of being a mom, and yes, include photography in there, but also what else? That's difficult for a lot of people to do, to sit down and think of why would someone want to be friends with me? Why would someone love me? Why would someone choose me? It's difficult.
It is, because you can sit here and say why your kids love you and why, why you're needed, but to think about why someone else outside of your family, and talking about motherhood, it's hard sometimes. It's
Yep.
hard.
It really
You
is. Yep.
identity changes and whatnot. So yeah, it's hard,
And
but
there's other ways to show up on social media. If you're not comfortable talking in front of a camera, there's other ways. You can post behind the scene videos of just like you guys at the park or whatever. Like it doesn't always have to be you holding up your phone talking into it. There's so many other ways that you can continually show up because reality is we're not all extroverts. And so if that's not something that's organic and comfortable for you, then don't make yourself someone that you're not, because what's going to happen is if you try and show up with a bunch of energy on social media and then you go to a session and you're trying to match that energy, you're going to get burnt out because you're trying to be someone you're not. So be organically yourself and just find ways to show up being yourself.
yeah. I always have to do like a little pump up song as I'm going to a session beforehand. It's honestly usually Spice Girls, and I'm like, come on, let's get going.
Yes.
Just need a little boost of energy.
I love it.
To be able to show up, but I'm totally an introvert, and it can be hard to show up on social media.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about showing
First
up.
step. Yep.
What else do you have?
So I started showing up a lot and I got a lot of inquiries. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously this is how I stood out, right? I obviously changed my pricing and everything. I started doing the business side correctly, you know what I mean? And actually making a profit with my sessions and stuff. And I was getting a lot of inquiries. I wasn't posting in the mom groups anymore and everything. Everything was coming through Instagram. I mean, that changed within a few months. But I realized that it was a lot of people I didn't want to work with. And that was just me personally. People who weren't valuing me, seeing me as a professional, or just like even some like families that I was just kind of like, it's not, I didn't have fun at this session. Why didn't I have fun? So the next thing that I did was really sit down and think of who do I want to serve, and really think about like we talk about ideal clients, but like in all honesty, like I wanted an ideal family. Like what would make me happy if I could only shoot one family for the rest of my life? What would they look like? And not like physically, like what is their dynamic like? You know what I mean? And so I sat there and I really thought about like, well, I want a family with young kids. That's something that makes me really happy. And I want families that like love to play with each other, that they're not the family that's like, here, watch the iPad while we go do this, and adults over here, families over here, or kids over here. Like I wanted a family like that. And so I sat there and was like, well, how can I get more of those people? Because I can't just sit there and be like, hey, only searching for, you know what I mean? So I decided that I need to only, instead of trying to talk to everybody, talk to only that person. Like I'm calling that mom on the phone and I'm like, what does she need to hear from me today? You know what I mean? Does she need advice? Does she need to be educated on something? Does she need to be informed of like, hey, I'm doing a session, just so you know. So every single time I showed up on social media, not only was I thinking about how I'm going to show up as myself, but also how am I talking to that mom today? And what does she need to hear from me? So instead of thinking of like everybody, I started really pinpointing it to just that one person.
Mm-hmm. I love that you take the, ideal client that we all think of kind of one step further, because when we talk about ideal client, we think, okay, where do they shop? Where do they eat? What are their interests? Where are they located? What is their job? But you're taking it even one step further and saying like, what are their interactions like with their family? Like just a little bit further to really define that client and who you want to work with, which I don't think that's definitely not talked about enough, because most of us just cover the surface and we don't dive down, into all of the what are they really like.
Yeah, like what's the home like, because I mean, just a little story. What really got me here was I had a session where the mom and dad were yelling at their kids the entire time. And I left that session. I was just like, oh, this is so exhausting, And then the next day I had a session where the mom and dad were playing with their kids and they were just having so much fun. And that's what kind of hit it for me. And I was like, you know what? I understand that kids act up. I understand that it could be stressful at a session. Like I've been there. I was definitely that mom. My son threw sand at a photographer one time. So, I get it, but it's like, okay, well, how can I talk to that ideal client and let them have a peace of mind that choosing me is going to be better than choosing anybody else. So even if they're so stressed out about the session, they feel a little bit more at peace with having me. And so that's kind of what I started like trying to just click with too. Like, well, what do I bring to the table? Why would they want to choose me? Or how do I reach more of these people who just want to have fun with their kids, and they're not so stressed out about getting the perfect shot. And that's kind of like where that ideal client came into play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It really makes you think more than, just that surface level stuff that we're kind of taught or read about on blogs or whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. So then the third thing that I did was I'm not going to say what website host that I did, but I created a website because it was like, well, you have to have a website, you know what I mean? Like, so that was my thought process. It was supposed to be like, I thought of it as a place just to hold my portfolio work, you know what I mean? And so what I decided to do when I first started was, like I said, create that website. And I was like, oh, and I'll just grow. As I grow, I'll update my website. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of work. I don't know how many times you've ever updated a website, but that's a lot of work.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. No. So what I decided to do is really sit down and think of like, well, what do I want out of a website? If I'm really looking for people to find me, the idea that if social media went down and all my business was coming from Instagram at this point scared the crud out of me. And I'm like, I don't want to go to these mom groups. Like that was always in the back of my head. And so I was like, well, how else can I make sure people find me? And honestly, Google's not going away anytime soon. You know what I mean? So I knew that I needed to have a website, and not only just a website that hosted my portfolio work, but that actually converted to clients that showed, not only talked to my ideal client, but showed who I was, and that was easy to navigate. And I think that was something that was very big that set me apart just from people here in Florida. When you come to my website, it was just like, it was a different experience. And I always tell my students, like, a website, if you don't have it elevated, it's kind of like having the Mona Lisa in your garage. You know what I mean? It's very different than having it in your garage versus on a museum wall. You look at it very differently. You treat it very differently, right? And so I feel like that was the final step in having people actually treat me like the professional and realize like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. I know I'm going to have a good experience with her. We're going to have fun. She's going to be great with my kids. And she's going to be the professional. She's going to know how to edit the pictures, deliver them to me, and it's going to be an amazing experience, And so that's what I did. I got off the website platform that I was using, that a lot of, I think, newer photographers just kind of go towards, and I elevated everything. And again, that's talking with not only just websites, but obviously like gallery host, my CRM system, everything. I elevated everything to make it an experience with me rather than a mom with a camera.
Yeah. And of course, CloudSpot helps you elevate that experience.
Oh, yep, 100%.
Yeah, it truly does. And if I can drop the link to your website so everyone listening can take a look too. But it just gives you that like the fun, playful vibe. Like it's very clear that you're a fun photographer to work with. So
thanks. I do my best. It's funny because I'm a boy mom. And so I'm actually moving up to Virginia Beach, which is going to be a very different experience of figuring out how to move my photography business. But
right.
But one of my clients reached out to me and was like, who's ever going to work with my boys the same way that you do? And I'm like, I know, I work with boys really well, like the little ones.
That's so sweet. Yeah. It's such a nice compliment when someone, reaches out and says something just about working, not about the photos you take, but about what it's like to work with you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Mm-hmm.
So we've got quite a few people here with us. Can we
everyone.
Q&A if anyone has questions?
I'm down to answer anything.
Okay, so I know it's slightly delayed in the Facebook group, but if you have questions for Ashley, feel free to drop them in the comments and we can put them on the screen and answer them. While we wait for some to come in though, can you tell us a little bit more about your education that you offer and courses and just everything that you have?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a few different things. I have, I think 4 different courses that you can do. I have 2 games guides where like I love working with kids and playing games. Like I'm very anti pose stuff. So, but a lot of people are like struggle with like the Pinterest. Like I want the Pinterest, like the organic, like, candid moments, but like how do I do that without posing them? So I have like games and prompts that I like to use in those. And so I sell those. I have Games Guide 1, which is for younger kids, Games Guide 2, which is for older kids, which is a little bit harder, right?
Yeah.
But then on top of the courses, like honestly, I love posing courses. I'll watch those like anything. But everything else, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if you're the same thing, Logan, but I buy a course and I'm just like, yeah, I'll watch it later when I have time.
Oh,
So,
great.
my business partner, Lauren, and I realized that a lot of people do that, but you need the coaching. Like, we want to make sure that people actually are doing this. So, we offer 2 different coaching programs. One of them is a virtual workshop where it's a 3-month group coaching program where we walk you through everything about a family session from like inquiry all the way to gallery delivery, how we do this, how we have systems in place for everything, even a system for at the session. I suffer from pretty bad anxiety, which you would never know because I can show up live like this, no problem, right? But I struggled so much at going to a session and then them staring at me and they're like, okay, well, what do I do with my hands? I'm like, I don't know. Stop looking at me,
And
And
you know what to say, but you can't get it out either. Like
yes,
I'm the same way.
and then they're looking at you like you're an idiot. I know. Like I had plenty of those sessions. So we help you with that, help you out with the posing system, help you out how to do all that stuff. So that is a 3-month group coaching program. And then we do a business mastermind, which is where we actually really dive into how to help you stand out in the saturated market and how to do that business. I always see photography as like when we get into it, like 3 different steps. First, you need to know how to work your camera, right? You need to know the ins and outs of your camera. Second is how do you conduct a session? And then third is, okay, let's make this a business. So we really help out with the second and third step of, just making sure. And we've had so many students, which is really cool, be able to go full time after completing the 6-month mastermind with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
really cool.
Usually everyone's kind of ultimate goal is to do it full time.
Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. We've got a question. So I'm gonna put it on. So how did you find some of your first clients besides mom groups? So back to the beginning.
Yeah, some of my first clients, honestly, like, it's funny because everyone says like family and friends. Like I live in Jacksonville, my whole family lives in Virginia Beach, and so I didn't really have that. But I remember going to like baseball fields, and I asked. In all honesty, I just wasn't afraid. I don't know where the switch happened. In all honesty, I don't know what happened that made it all of a sudden. I was so afraid of saying that I was a photographer to just being like, I'm taking the leap. But I think that is what really has changed like the whole business is like constantly being like, I don't know what this is going to do. Like, just take the step, just keep moving forward and stop overthinking it. So I started asking people at like my son's baseball games. I asked like his karate instructor at one point if I could take pictures of her daughter. And I did, but it really was mom groups. That is exactly how I got probably my first 4 or 5 months of clients, was just constantly posting in mom groups, or talking about mini sessions. I think I did one giveaway and I will never do that again. I see photographers doing giveaways all the time. And if it works for you, that's amazing. I'm very anti ads. I do ads for education. And let me tell you, those are always so hit and miss. Like it takes so much analytics and like money and everything to get it right. I will never do ads for photography. It's hard enough, when you have like 3 or 4 months to do an ad, running an ad. I can't imagine for mini sessions. So it was just constantly posting and showing up and and asking people if I could take pictures of that for them.
And if you're not in mom groups, I can relate because I obviously am a mom, but I know a lot of photographers will post in like our city groups. We have one for like where I live, Round Rock, Texas, one for like Georgetown. So you could always do those, or like neighborhood groups, things like that. If you don't have mom groups, but that's exactly how I started too, was mom groups.
It's I think it's where most people start, and it's funny because I don't think you have to. I think that if you a lot of people ask me when they are thinking about joining the mastermind, like that they're like, hey, I know how to do a family session, so do you think that I should go ahead and start this way? And it's like, why would you start the hard way? Like, you don't have to go the hard route in order to come over here. Like, it's not like this long path. Like, come do the shortcut. Like, you can definitely start with like elevating a website, constantly posting on, showing up on social media and stuff. Like, it doesn't always have to be that way.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
You bring the queso, I'll bring the guac. Yep, that's me.
Can you guys come and join me in Texas, though? Because we have some really good guac here.
Oh, man. Oh, I would love to.
All right, so what's some advice you would give to a newer photographer taking the leap? Follow the 3 steps we just went over.
Yes, follow the street. Also, don't be afraid to invest in your business for education. I think that so many photographers think that they need to have the newest gear, and they put all of their money into a new camera, a new lens, a new XYZ props, all the things, right? But that's not making you money. Now, if you sit there and tell me that, you're shooting on your phone, that's a little different, right? But if you have a good camera and a good lens, start investing in your education. Find someone that you connect with. I'm pretty honest with my students if they come to me and they tell me where they're at in their business and they're asking me for help. If I don't feel like I can help them, I honestly point them into the coach that I feel like would be better for them. But find what you need help with and find someone who has been there, who does it and can do it. That is honestly finding Lauren to be able to help me through this process and everything changed the business for me. I invested so much money into education because I didn't want to do the trial and error. I didn't want to like fall on my face like 3 or 4 times. I wanted someone who could help me through it. And again, not just a course, coaching programs are where it's at because you get that help. Like if you're stuck, like if you're taking a course, you can't sit there and ask the computer screen, you know what I mean? If you're confused, like if you have a coaching program where you can actually ask the educator, like, hey, I was confused on this, or this isn't working for my business, what else would you suggest? We can be there to help.
Definitely. I feel like courses, like you said earlier, you buy them, they sit there. Or the other option without doing a coaching program would be to search YouTube for hours. Which
yes.
You don't want to do that when you're first starting out. You do not want to do that. So coaching programs.
Yep. And again, like if anyone is sitting there in here and you're like, because I don't do the newer photographer. I mean, like I'll do like help you out with sessions and stuff. But if you're looking for like things to help you with your camera and stuff, I have so many educator friends, and you guys have a ton of educators here in CloudSpot community. So I highly recommend.
All right, next question. What was your favorite session ever? I imagine living on the beach, you have a lot of different favorites.
Yes. I
feel like that's a really hard question.
It is a very hard question. I'll tell you the most memorable. The most memorable for me was, remember I told you those 2 sessions where one was just so miserable and the next one was just amazing. So it was a really bad session. I sat in my car and I saw a rain cloud come in. The session beforehand was that really bad one. And I was just kind of like done. I was like, this is not what I want to do. And I was dreading going to this session. I was on the phone with my good friend, and I was telling her how much I was just hoping this rain cloud would come in and cancel the session, and she was just like, just do it. Like, you need the money, you're furloughed, just do it, So I went out there and I just had this mindset of like, I just want to have fun. And I kind of like relayed that a little bit to mom, and mom and dad were really involved with their kids, and they had two little girls. And we just had so much fun. We just laughed and we played and they interacted. And that was probably my most memorable, because at that moment, that's when I left. And I was like, if I could just shoot that family for the rest of my life, I would be happy. Yeah. And that's what started the whole thing. And after that, it's been almost, I would say 90% of my sessions have been like that.
That's amazing, because then you don't get burnt out nearly as fast, especially during busy season. It's when you are doing sessions with your ideal client, having fun, I think it's more important than people think. Like some people will just, you go for whatever sessions are coming in and you take all of them because you're building a business. But once you find that client and can market and find more of those clients, it makes
Everything
it all
changes. Yeah. Agreed.
All right. But let's see. In terms of your business, do you strictly do various types of portrait sessions, or are there other subjects that you particularly enjoy?
I've really niched down to just families. I'll do milestones. I'll do lifestyle newborns every now and then, just when, like, I guess, because family sessions, we have like our highs and lows in seasons and stuff. So when it's dead time, I'll do newborns and like maternity. But in all honesty, I just do mostly portrait stuff. Sometimes I'll hop into branding for some photographers here in Jacksonville, but I don't really. I really enjoy working with families. And I learned a long time ago that if I try and do everything, then I'm going to get burnt out. So I try and stick to preferably people with like 5 to 6 year olds. I love 5 and 6 year olds.
I do too. I've got a 45-year-old at home. So yeah, it's such a fun age.
Yeah, agreed.
It is. All right. The questions are coming in.
They are, I know. Love it.
What are 1 or 2 limiting beliefs that either you had to work through yourself, or that you see your students really battling when it comes to their business?
I think that the biggest one for there's 2 biggest ones for a lot of my students. And I dealt with this as well. I think a lot of people do. One, that no one's going to pay that price because I live in a small town, or it's the same excuse, like, there's too many photographers. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. There's 1,000,001 photographers here. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I can't charge these prices because I have to charge this little because there's so many photographers. Or you get the opposite end. I live in a small town, so there's not a lot of people. So I have to charge this low of a price or else I'm not going to get clients. I think that is the biggest limiting mindset. And, I used to get so mad at people when they would try and talk me out of this mindset and be like, well, everyone's got like new cars and they can afford phones and they can afford this and they can afford photography. And I used to get so mad and frustrated and annoyed when people said that to me. But it is the truth. People put money in what they value. So when you think of it that way, and if you're only charging, like, you're undercharging what you're worth, and that means that people aren't putting the money into it. That means they're not valuing your work or you as a photographer. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me to kind of get around. And a lot of my students struggle with this too. I think my most common phrase that I say in my business mastermind is raise your prices. And they're always like, I know, but, and they'll give me all the reasons why. And it's a fear. And I get it. It is a fear of, if you raise your prices, your clientele might dip. But it's like, I always tell them, what if it doesn't? What if you find a new set of people who like respect you and treat you differently? So that's probably the number one that we have to go through, and the hurdle that we have to overcome. The second one is, I'm not good enough. That's a big one that we see a lot. And again, that's what prevented me from actually going into photography for almost 9 years. I'm not good enough. What are people going to think when I say that I'm a photographer? What are my friends going to think when they see the prices? Or what are my friends going to think when, I quit my job to do this and just be a photographer? And so I think we have this stigma that, like, we're a mom with a camera, and if I can do it, that means anybody can do it. But the truth is, it's not, that's not accurate at all. You have a gift, and so I think that is the biggest 2 hurdles that we have to help a lot of photographers overcome.
Yeah. I feel like so many people are scared of being labeled just a photographer, because when you do leave that 9-to-5 job or whatever, wherever you are in life, whatever job you leave to do photography full time, people do see you as like, oh, a starving artist or whatever it might be. But what we do is so important. The photos that our clients have are the memories that they will have when, people are no longer here. So it breaks my heart when people are like, well, I'm just a photographer. Like, but you're not just a photographer. Your work is so important. So yeah, I hope more people.
Yes.
Because it's important.
It is.
Okay, on to the next one. Do you still offer workshops?
Not in-person workshops anymore. So again, I'm a single mom. My business partner has 2 little ones. It is very, very difficult for us to take the time, and we were making it work for a long period of time. For almost a year, we've done like 4 or 5 workshops, in-person workshops, and we decided. There's a lot of people who were in the same boat. They were like, I want to come so bad, but I can't leave my children for 4 or 5 days, or the plane rides and stuff. And so we decided to move our in-person workshop, and that is our virtual workshop now. Instead of just a weekend with us, you're going to get 3 whole months, and we're going to be able to help you through all of the sessions and everything. Even like before and after now, we're able to help a little bit more with just like camera settings, how to get those like really crisp images of moving subjects. We're going to go into detail about your system for when someone inquires, like how do you handle that? How do you handle difficult situations? How do you prep your family? How do you create this amazing client experience before the session even starts? How do you continue with that amazing client experience at the session? How do you pose the family? How do you play games with the family? We're going to go over over 20 of my games and prompts that I use at my family sessions. You're going to see like my super secret prompt that I use at every single session, how I address my family when I see them to have that instant connection with the kids that I work with. And then not only that, but how to continue that client experience afterwards, and how to load your sessions into CloudSpot, how to send the gallery, how to lead them to the shop, how to do more print sales, and what you need to do for connections after sessions. So we do all of that in the virtual family workshop.
I love that. I need to join.
Yes.
We have
a lot of fun in there. That was probably my fun group. Like we laugh a lot.
I love it. It's so nice when you find that community of photographers that aren't trying to tear each other down. It's just a very uplifting, positive community. So, and it's really important to find. All right. How did you find a way to show up in an authentic how did you find a way to show up authentic or genuine while balancing sounding too business-like when marketing?
So I never sound businessy. I'm very me. I feel like when if I have to say something business-wise, like for example, hey, I'm hosting mini sessions, you know what I mean? I say it in a very me way. Like obviously, again, going back to the ideal client, I'm picking up the phone. What does my mom need to hear from me today? How am I articulating that? And what really, really helped me, in all honesty, with this is doing voice notes. So have you ever done that? Like go into the note section of your phone and then just have record myself. And like I was talking to whoever I was, like picking up the phone and just talking out loud. I stopped trying to be perfect, which is really hard for me. I'm a perfectionist. I stopped trying to show up and being perfect and sounding like, so I just keep it professional, but I also am very just genuine. If you go to my Instagram, a lot of it is just me relating. And if I have to say like, hey, I just want to give you guys an FYI, I did one of these on my Instagram a few weeks ago that I'm moving. So clients, I'm moving. And if you want to have a session with me, now's the time, click my bio. Again, it's very me, but I have to relate business stuff.
I just dropped your link in the comments for your Instagram. And you should definitely go check out the post. You did a pricing post the other day.
I did.
Yeah, I love that. I think doing a cost of doing business as a new photographer is so overwhelming. And I feel like most people will avoid it for a good 2 years and then be like, oh, I should probably go do that and figure out what I'm making in each hour. And yeah. So definitely check that post out. I really liked it.
Thanks.
All right, let's see. Now that you're moving to Virginia Beach, how will you establish yourself in a new market? That's a great question.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go back to the basics of what I did when I first started. And I'm actually really excited about it because I have been teaching this for so long. I'm excited to go back and see like are there things that I'm missing that I'm not teaching, you know? So you will probably see here at the beginning of May that because I'm a firm believer that you need to do everything 4 to 6 weeks before you want to actually start doing something. So if you're advertising for mini sessions, you need to start 4 to 6 weeks beforehand. I'm moving in the middle of June, so probably in May you'll start seeing like my bio change to Virginia Beach. I will Instagram just for marketing. I don't want to go all the way into Instagram, but Instagram is going more towards keyword searches. So just being very intentional with my keywords on all my posts, and then obviously blogging. That's going to be a new thing, but I'm really excited because it's a little scary. I'm not going to lie. I do know more people up in Virginia Beach, so I'm not as afraid. If I was moving to a city that I don't know anybody, it'd be a little bit more scary. But I'm actually kind of it's a bunch of feelings. Like I'm scary. I'm scary. I'm excited. I'm scared.
Right.
But I'm mostly excited to see how it like kind of I'm going to be able to implement the same strategies that I teach all my students again in my business and show like it works, you know. But again, see where I missed the mark of teaching and be able to implement that to my students.
Yeah, that's great. I think those are all the questions that were dropped in the comments. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think that all of our community members have some great actionable steps to leave with and start implementing in their business. So
I love it. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.